I'm Sophie Adams, 34 years old, a tech executive from Boston with a secret only a few know. My husband James, 39, works as a marketing director at a rival firm. What he doesn't realize is that the private jet he boarded with another woman belongs to me. A parting gift from my grandfather, the airline became mine 2 years ago. Now, 7 months pregnant, I sit watching the live feed of my husband's betrayal unfold at 30,000 feet. Before I continue this wild story, let me know where you're watching from and hit that subscribe button if you want to see how I turned this betrayal into my greatest victory. I grew up in a wealthy but surprisingly down-to-earth Boston family. My grandfather built his airline business from nothing, expanding it into a boutique luxury service that catered to executives and celebrities who valued privacy. Despite our family's success, my parents were adamant about raising me with a strong work ethic. They believed that inherited wealth without purpose created entitlement, not happiness. Money is a tool, Sophie, not a personality trait. My father would often say when I was growing up. This philosophy shaped me profoundly. While my friends from similar backgrounds flaunted their wealth, I focused on education and building my own path. After graduating with honors in computer science, I refused to use family connections to secure my first job. Instead, I worked my way up through the tech industry on merit alone. By 30, I had established myself as a respected executive at a cybersecurity firm known for my innovations rather than my family name. It was at the annual Tech Forward conference in New York where I first met James. I was presenting on emerging cybersecurity threats, and he was representing his marketing firm. Our eyes locked during the networking mixer, and the connection was immediate. Tall with dark hair and confident blue eyes, James had a magnetic presence that drew me in despite my usual caution. "That was the most understandable explanation of quantum encryption I've ever heard," he said, handing me a glass of champagne. "You made something impossibly complex seem logical." His compliment was specific and genuine, not the usual small talk I endured at these events. We talked until the venue staff began stacking chairs around us, lost in conversation about everything from business ethics to our favorite hiking trails. James came from a middle-class background in Philadelphia. He'd put himself through college working nights at a local restaurant and had built his career in marketing through pure determination. I admired his drive and how he'd succeeded without the safety net I'd always had, even if I rarely used it. Our romance progressed quickly. Within 6 months, we were inseparable. James proposed on a sailing trip along the Massachusetts coastline, with no photographers or elaborate setups, just the two of us and a vintage ring that had belonged to his grandmother. "I don't want a society wedding," he told me when we began planning, "just us and the people who truly matter." I appreciated his groundedness. It reminded me of my own family's approach to wealth, present but not defining. We married in a small ceremony at my parents' Cape Cod property, with fewer than 50 guests and a reception that focused on heartfelt moments rather than extravagance. The first 5 years of our marriage seemed perfect. We bought a beautiful colonial-style home in Brookline, a leafy suburb just outside Boston. Our careers flourished in parallel, often consulting each other on challenges and celebrating each success as a team victory. James never seemed intimidated by my success or family background, something I'd worried about with previous relationships. We agreed to establish ourselves professionally before starting a family, setting a 5-year plan that we both committed to. As that milestone approached, we began trying for a baby, excited to expand our family and create the stable, loving home we both envisioned. Then my grandfather passed away. At 89, he had remained actively involved in his airline until just months before his death. The loss devastated our family, particularly my father, who had worked alongside his dad for decades. At the reading of the will came the surprise. While most of my grandfather's assets went to my parents and various charities, he had left complete ownership of Eagle Stream Airlines, his boutique luxury jet service, directly to me. Sophie always understood the balance of privilege and responsibility. My grandfather's letter explained. "She'll guide this company with intelligence and heart." The inheritance shocked everyone, including me. Though I'd always shared a special bond with my grandfather discussing business and technology during our Sunday dinners, I never expected such a significant bequest. The airline wasn't enormous, a fleet of 12 luxury jets catering to high-end clients, but it was prestigious and profitable. I decided to remain a silent owner, keeping the experienced management team in place while learning the business from a distance. Only a handful of people knew about my ownership, a privacy arrangement my grandfather had established years ago for security reasons. I maintained this approach, finding it allowed the business to operate without the complications that sometimes came with my family name. James was supportive but somewhat distant about the inheritance. "It's your family legacy," he said. "You should handle it however feels right." His response seemed appropriate at the time, though in retrospect, his lack of curiosity about this significant change in our lives should have been my first warning sign. Life continued smoothly until last year when we decided it was finally time to start our family. After several months of trying, I discovered I was pregnant. The moment I saw the positive test, joy overwhelmed me. I planned an intimate dinner to tell James, cooking his favorite meal and placing a tiny pair of baby shoes beside his plate. His reaction seemed genuinely happy. "This is amazing, Soph. We're going to be parents," he exclaimed, hugging me tightly. Yet something felt slightly off, like his smile didn't quite reach his eyes. I dismissed it as shock or perhaps anxiety about the major life change ahead. We celebrated with sparkling cider, making plans for the nursery and discussing potential names deep into the night. Looking back, that evening marked a subtle shift in our relationship. While James said all the right things, his behavior began to change in ways so gradual I nearly missed them. The man who had always rushed home to spend time with me started working later. Our weekend hikes became solo activities for me as he cited work emergencies and client crises. I wanted to believe him. After all, we had built 5 years of trust, and I had no reason to doubt his commitment to our family. But as my body changed with pregnancy, my husband seemed to be changing too in ways I couldn't quite understand. The first real signs of trouble began around my 4th month of pregnancy. James had always been attentive about his appearance, but suddenly he became obsessive. New tailored suits appeared in his closet. He joined an exclusive gym downtown. His morning routine doubled in length, with premium colognes and styling products lining his side of the bathroom counter. When I commented on these changes, his response came too quickly. "Gotta keep up with the young guns at work, Soph. Marketing is all about image, you know that." It might have been innocent, but it was his new password protections that truly unsettled me. James had never been secretive with his phone or laptop before. We knew each other's passwords as a matter of convenience, not surveillance. Then one evening, while he showered, his phone lit up on the coffee table. Habitually, I reached for it to check who was calling, only to find a new lock screen I couldn't access. Later, when I mentioned it casually, his reaction was disproportionate. "I have client information on there, Sophie. The new compliance rules at work require better security." His tone was defensive, almost accusatory, as though I had violated his privacy rather than followed our normal routine. More concerning changes followed. Credit card notifications showed restaurant charges at times when James claimed to be working late. His weekend client meetings increased, yet he shared fewer details about these supposedly crucial interactions. I might have investigated sooner, but my pregnancy took a challenging turn. At my 5-month checkup, my doctor discovered my blood pressure was dangerously elevated. Preeclampsia risk meant I needed to reduce stress and work hours immediately. "Bed rest isn't necessary yet," my doctor explained, "but you need to scale back significantly. Work from home when possible and avoid anything stressful." The timing couldn't have been worse. My tech company was in the middle of a major security protocol upgrade that I had been spearheading. Suddenly, I was managing my team remotely, attending virtual meetings from our home office and watching as projects I had nurtured were redistributed to colleagues. James's support during this difficult transition was noticeably inadequate. While he made the expected sympathetic noises, his presence in our home actually decreased. "Someone has to keep the income flowing," he remarked once, a comment that stung given that my salary significantly exceeded his. My friend Melissa became my lifeline during this period. A pediatric nurse with a flexible schedule, she often stopped by with healthy meals and much-needed companionship. One evening, as we shared a pot of herbal tea, she hesitated before speaking. "Sophie, I don't want to upset you, especially given your condition, but I saw James last week at Vincenzo's." Vincenzo's was an upscale Italian restaurant downtown, known for its romantic atmosphere and exclusive clientele. "He was probably with clients," I responded automatically. Melissa looked uncomfortable. "He was with a woman, just one woman. They looked close." My heart sank, but defensiveness rose instantly. "He meets with female clients all the time. His firm represents several women-owned businesses." "Maybe," Melissa conceded, but her expression remained troubled. "It just didn't look like business to me. Their table had champagne, and they were seated in one of those private corner booths." I dismissed her concerns outwardly, but inwardly a seed of doubt took root. That night I lay awake beside my sleeping husband, wondering if the subtle distance I'd been feeling had a more concrete cause than I wanted to admit. The following week, I discovered unfamiliar charges on our joint credit card statement. Normally, I wouldn't scrutinize our spending so closely, but being homebound had given me more time for routine tasks. A charge from Elysian Jewelers caught my attention, an expensive boutique where James and I had purchased my engagement ring years ago. When confronted, James had a ready explanation. "It's a surprise for your birthday, Sophie. I wanted to get you something special for our last birthday before becoming parents." He seemed hurt by my questioning, making me feel guilty for doubting him. The jewelry never appeared. My birthday came and went with a different gift, a cashmere sweater purchased from a department store on a different credit card. When I mentioned the jeweler again, James claimed he'd returned the original purchase because it wasn't perfect enough. Each explanation seemed plausible in isolation. Together they formed a pattern I was increasingly unable to ignore. Yet pregnancy had created a vulnerability I'd never experienced before. My body was no longer entirely my own, and the hormonal changes affected my emotional stability in ways that made me doubt my own perceptions. Was I being paranoid? Was the reduced work schedule making me focus too much on my marriage? These questions circled in my mind as my isolation increased. My social circle had already contracted due to my pregnancy complications. Friends still invited me to gatherings, but sitting at a restaurant for hours or attending evening events became too exhausting. Video calls and brief home visits replaced my once active social life. In this isolation, my connection with my unborn child intensified. I began talking to my belly, sharing my thoughts and concerns when no one else was around. "What do you think, little one? Is your dad just stressed about becoming a father? Or is something else happening?" The fluttering movements in response became a comfort, a reminder that regardless of what was happening in my marriage, this new life gave me purpose and connection. I was not truly alone, even in my loneliest moments. At 28 weeks pregnant, my suspicions crystallized into something I could no longer ignore. James announced an upcoming business trip to Miami, supposedly to meet with a crucial new client who could transform his firm's portfolio. This account could mean a promotion, Soph. Executive Vice President. We're talking serious money and influence. The opportunity sounded legitimate. His marketing firm had been pursuing more luxury hospitality clients, and Miami was a logical location for such meetings. What raised my suspicions was his reaction when I suggested joining him. "You'd come to Miami?" he asked, his voice pitching slightly higher. "With your condition?" "My doctor said short flights are fine at this stage. I could relax at the hotel during your meetings, maybe get some sun by the pool. It would be our last little vacation before the baby." His rejection came swiftly, wrapped in concern that felt hollow. "Absolutely not. Your blood pressure is still unstable. What if something happened in Miami? Our doctor is here. The hospital we chose is here. It's not worth the risk." While his argument made logical sense, His vehemence seemed excessive. More telling was his slip when discussing flight details. Over dinner, I casually asked about his travel arrangements. "Which airline are you flying this time? Please tell me not Economy Air again. Their delays made you miserable last quarter." James paused a beat too long. "Actually, the client is arranging transportation. Private jet service." This caught my attention immediately. Private jet? That's unusual for an initial meeting. They're serious players, Soph. Ultra-luxury resorts. This is how they operate. I nodded, letting the subject drop, but my mind was racing. Private jet service fell directly within my area of unexpected expertise. As the owner of Eagle Stream Airlines, I had intimate knowledge of the luxury aviation market and its practices. While some major clients did provide transportation for potential partners, it was rare for an initial meeting, particularly for a marketing firm that wasn't yet contracted. That evening after James fell asleep, I slipped into our home office and logged into the Eagle Stream booking system. I rarely monitored daily operations, trusting my management team implicitly, but I had access to all reservation and flight information. My initial curiosity was innocent, wondering if perhaps James's potential client had booked with my airline, a coincidence that would have been amusing. What I found was far from amusing. James had personally booked one of our jets 2 weeks ago using our joint credit card for the substantial payment. The reservation showed a round trip from Boston to Miami with the outbound flight scheduled for Thursday morning, returning Monday afternoon. The booking listed 2 passengers, James Wilson and guest. I stared at the screen, a cold sensation spreading through my chest. My husband had not only lied about who was arranging the transportation, but had used our own money to book a private jet with my company, bringing an unnamed guest along for what was supposedly a business trip. The painful irony wasn't lost on me. James had no idea I owned Eagle Stream. My grandfather's privacy provisions meant the company operated under a corporate structure that didn't publicly reveal my ownership. James knew I had inherited my grandfather's airline business, but had never shown enough interest to ask for specifics, and I had never volunteered the information. Now I faced an excruciating dilemma. I could confront James immediately with what I knew, potentially forcing a crisis while I was physically vulnerable. Or I could wait, gather more information, and decide how to proceed with a clearer picture of exactly what I was facing. My protective instincts, now heightened by pregnancy, leaned toward the latter option. If my marriage was indeed falling apart, I needed to approach the situation strategically, not emotionally. For my sake and my child's future, I needed certainty before action. That night, I lay beside my husband, feeling miles apart, my hand resting on my active baby bump. The child inside me seemed to sense my distress movements more pronounced than usual. "We'll be okay," I whispered inwardly. "Whatever happens, you and I will be okay." The following day, internal conflict consumed me. Part of me felt guilty about investigating my husband, a man I had trusted completely for years. Was I violating his privacy? Jumping to conclusions based on circumstantial evidence. Yet another part, perhaps the executive accustomed to making difficult decisions based on incomplete data, recognized patterns that couldn't be dismissed. By evening, my decision was made. I would monitor the flight. Eagle Stream jets were equipped with security cameras in the cabin, a feature rarely accessed except for security reviews after incidents. As the owner, I had authorization to view these feeds, though I had never done so before. I contacted Thomas, our chief pilot, and my grandfather's most trusted employee, who knew about my ownership. Without providing details of my suspicions, I requested access to the cabin feed for the specific flight and asked for updates throughout the journey. Thomas, professional and discreet, arranged everything without questions. "The feed will be available through your secure portal, Mrs. Adams. I'll be flying the route myself and can provide any information you need." With the monitoring arranged, all I could do was wait for Thursday to arrive, hoping desperately that what I would witness would somehow have an innocent explanation. Thursday morning arrived with a physical heaviness that matched my emotional state. James woke early, his movements around our bedroom deliberate and precise. I watched through half-closed eyes as he dressed with unusual care, selecting his newest suit and spending extra time grooming. "Hey, you're up," he said, noticing my open eyes. "I need to head out early for my flight. The car service is already outside." "Good luck with the client," I replied, my voice steady despite the knot in my stomach. "Call me when you land." "Of course," he answered, leaning down for a brief kiss that barely brushed my cheek. "Take care of yourself and the little one. Don't forget your blood pressure medication." With that, he was gone, the sound of his designer luggage rolling across our hardwood floors fading into silence. The casual observer might have seen a concerned husband leaving his pregnant wife with appropriate reminders about her health. I saw a man performing a role, going through motions that no longer carried genuine emotion. Once alone, I moved to my home office, transforming it into a monitoring station. My laptop displayed the secure portal to the Eagle Stream system, while my desktop showed the flight tracking information. I made myself a cup of herbal tea, trying to calm my nerves and lower my blood pressure before whatever revelations lay ahead. The first footage appeared as the plane prepared for departure. The luxurious cabin of the Gulfstream G650, one of our newest acquisitions, sat empty except for our flight attendant, Kara, arranging welcome amenities. Fresh flowers, premium champagne, and gourmet snacks were standard for our service, but I noticed extra touches that weren't typical, a special order someone had placed for this particular journey. At precisely 8:15, the footage showed James boarding at our private terminal at Logan Airport. He carried his weekend bag and a leather briefcase, dressed impeccably in his navy suit. To the flight attendant, he presented himself with a confidence bordering on arrogance, someone accustomed to luxury travel rather than a first-time private jet client. "Will your guest be joining us at this terminal, Mr. Wilson?" Kara asked professionally. "No, we'll be making a quick stop at Bedford to pick her up," James replied, settling into one of the plush leather seats and immediately accepting the offered champagne. Bedford referred to Hanscom Field, a smaller airfield outside Boston, often used by private jets to avoid Logan's traffic. Her. The confirmation sent a wave of nausea through me that had nothing to do with pregnancy. I watched as the plane taxied and took off, James already making himself comfortable with a second glass of champagne before they'd even reached cruising altitude. 20 minutes later, the plane landed briefly at Hanscom Field. The door opened to admit a woman I recognized instantly. Amanda Miller, a marketing consultant who had joined James's firm about a year ago. I'd met her at the company holiday party last December, where James had introduced her as a brilliant new talent in their digital strategy department. Amanda was in her late 20s, slender with stylishly cut auburn hair and a confident stride. She boarded the plane carrying only a designer weekend bag, dressed in an outfit far too casual for any business meeting, but perfect for a Miami getaway, slim white pants and a silky blue top that complemented her figure. What happened next shattered any remaining hope of an innocent explanation. James stood to greet her, but instead of a professional handshake or collegial hug, he pulled her into a passionate kiss that she eagerly returned. It was not their first kiss. The ease and familiarity of their embrace spoke of an established relationship, comfortable and intimate. "You pulled it off," Amanda said when they finally separated. "I still can't believe we're doing this." James grinned, pouring her a glass of champagne. "Only the best for us, baby. Wait until you see the hotel suite I booked." They toasted, clinking crystal flutes. "To us," James said, "and our incredible future." To us," Amanda echoed. "And no more sneaking around soon." My hands trembled so violently that tea spilled across my desk. I barely noticed, transfixed by the casual cruelty unfolding before me. James wasn't just having an affair, he was flaunting it, using my own airline paid for with our joint funds to create a luxurious experience for his mistress. As the flight progressed toward Miami, their conversation revealed the full extent of the betrayal. James acted as though he owned the plane, explaining features to Amanda as if he were a regular client intimately familiar with luxury aviation. "These jets are the absolute pinnacle of travel," he boasted. Only top executives and celebrities can afford this level of service. The company I use is extremely exclusive. Amanda seemed impressed, running her hand along the leather seating. It must cost a fortune. Worth every penny for the privacy alone, James replied with a wink. No nosy airline staff or fellow passengers. Just us and complete discretion. The irony might have been laughable if it weren't so painful. James had no idea that the discreet staff worked for his own wife, that the fortune he spent came from our joint account, or that his private romantic getaway was being monitored by the very person he was betraying. Their conversation turned more intimate as the flight continued with physical affection that became increasingly difficult to watch. I nearly closed the feed several times but forced myself to continue. If I was going to make life-altering decisions, I needed complete information, not comforting denial. Then came the most devastating revelation of all. As they discussed their future plans, Amanda placed her hand protectively over her stomach, a gesture I recognized all too well. "How are you feeling today?" James asked, his tone gentler than I'd heard in months. "Any morning sickness?" "Just a little nausea earlier," Amanda replied. "The doctor says that's normal for the first trimester. I'm almost through the worst of it at 12 weeks. 12 weeks pregnant." The information hit me like a physical blow. While I carried his child at 7 months, James had impregnated another woman. The timeline indicated their affair had been ongoing throughout most of my pregnancy. "I still think we should tell Sophie after her baby is born," Amanda continued. "It seems cruel to dump this on her while she's pregnant." James nodded, taking her hand. "It's the right thing to do. Once she delivers and things stabilize, I'll file for divorce. The timing is unfortunate, but we can't put our lives on hold forever." "And you're sure about the financial situation?" Amanda asked. "Your wife comes from money, right?" "Old Boston money," James confirmed. "Plus she inherited some business from her grandfather. Don't worry about our future. Between the divorce settlement and my upcoming promotion, we'll be more than comfortable. Sophie will never even know about us until I'm ready to tell her." The physical pain that shot through me prompted an immediate call to my doctor. While still watching the footage, I described my symptoms: the tightness in my chest, the dizziness, the cramping sensation. "You need to come in immediately, Sophie," my doctor insisted. "Your blood pressure is likely dangerously high right now. Whatever is causing this stress needs to wait." I called Melissa, who arrived within 20 minutes to drive me to the hospital. Before leaving, I saved the flight footage and sent myself secure access links so I could continue monitoring from my hospital room if necessary. Some might call it obsessive, but I needed to know everything if I was going to protect myself and my baby from whatever James was planning. At the hospital, my fears were confirmed. My blood pressure had spiked to dangerous levels, putting both me and my baby at risk. As the medical team worked to stabilize my condition, Melissa sat beside me holding my hand. "What happened, Sophie? What triggered this?" Through tears and medical monitoring, I explained what I had discovered. Melissa's expression shifted from shock to rage to protective determination. "That absolute bastard," she whispered. "Don't worry, Soph. We'll get through this together, and he will not win. I promise you that." As medication gradually lowered my blood pressure, the doctor insisted I remain overnight for observation. From my hospital bed, with Melissa now gone to collect some personal items from my home, I continued watching select portions of the flight footage, gathering evidence and listening to James and Amanda plan their future at my expense. They discussed names for their baby, their plans to relocate to Miami permanently after securing the new client, and James's strategy for claiming his fair share of my assets during divorce proceedings. Each revelation should have increased my distress, but strangely I felt a growing calm replace my initial shock. The clarity of complete betrayal removed all ambiguity. My path forward was difficult but clear. By morning, with my condition stabilized, I made my first call not to James, who believed I was safely at home, but to Martin Goldstein, my family's attorney for over 30 years. With medical confirmation that stress could seriously endanger my pregnancy, I approached the situation with a new perspective. My priority had to be protecting myself and my unborn child, both emotionally and legally. The baby girl I carried, already named Lily in my heart, though I hadn't shared the name with James, deserved a mother who was whole and strong. Martin Goldstein arrived at the hospital within hours of my call, his familiar presence bringing comfort I desperately needed. At 72, Martin had handled everything from my grandfather's complex estate planning to my parents' philanthropic foundations. His silver hair and calm demeanor belied the sharp legal mind that had protected our family interests for decades. "I've never liked rushing to conclusions, Sophie," he said after listening to my account and viewing selected clips of the footage I had gathered. "But in this case, the evidence is unambiguous. We need to act decisively to protect your interests and your child's future." While still in the hospital, I authorized Martin to begin preparing divorce proceedings, though we agreed not to file immediately. Strategic timing would be crucial. We also discussed the airline ownership and how to protect my inheritance from any potential claims. "Your grandfather's foresight in structuring the company ownership through multiple layers of trusts will be invaluable now," Martin explained. "The prenuptial agreement you signed provides additional protection for assets acquired through inheritance. James may attempt to claim a portion based on his contribution to value increase during your marriage, but we have strong counters to such arguments." Martin arranged for a forensic accountant to begin investigating our finances, looking for any evidence of funds James might have hidden or misappropriated. I provided full access to our account's credit card statements and investment portfolios. What the investigation revealed over the next day shocked even Martin. James had been systematically transferring small amounts from our joint accounts to a private account for over a year, accumulating a substantial sum. He had also taken out a second mortgage on our home without my knowledge, forging my signature on the documents, a clear case of fraud that strengthened my legal position considerably. "He's been planning this for some time," Martin concluded grimly. "The good news, if we can call it that, is that these financial improprieties give us significant leverage." Released from the hospital with strict instructions to minimize stress, I returned home to an empty house that no longer felt like mine. The spaces James and I had shared were now tainted by his deception. Even our wedding photos, still displayed in the living room, seemed like artifacts from a fictional relationship, rather than the marriage I thought we had. Rather than dwelling in that emptiness, I decided to reconnect with the one part of my life that James had never truly touched: Eaglestream Airlines. From my home office, I scheduled a meeting with the senior management team people who had known and respected my grandfather and who had discreetly worked with me since his passing. The meeting took place at my home with 5 key executives gathered in our rarely used formal dining room. I explained my situation in direct terms, not seeking sympathy but alliance. "I'm facing a personal crisis that may have implications for the company," I told them. "My husband is unaware of my ownership position in Eaglestream, and I have recently discovered his infidelity while using our services." Daniel Richards, our CEO, who had worked alongside my grandfather for 20 years, spoke first. "I'm deeply sorry for this situation, Sophie. Your grandfather would be furious. How can we support you?" Their immediate loyalty touched me deeply. These were experienced business professionals who had respected my hands-off approach to management while appreciating my strategic input when offered. Now they rallied around me with both personal concern and professional determination. Together we developed a plan for handling James's return flight, scheduled for the following Monday. The plan was not about revenge, but about controlled confrontation on my terms, in an environment where I would have support, and James would be unable to manipulate the situation. "We'll ensure your safety and privacy throughout," Daniel assured me, "and we can arrange for security if needed." With the business aspects addressed, I turned to my personal preparation. My parents, vacationing in Europe, offered to return immediately when I finally shared the situation with them by phone. I declined their offer but accepted their support from afar. My father, typically reserved with his emotions, made his position clear. "You're a Thompson before you're a Wilson," he reminded me, using my maiden name. We protect our own Sophie. Whatever you need, however you decide to handle this, we stand with you. Melissa became my daily support, staying with me at the house and helping create a calm environment essential for my health. Together, we transformed the guest room into my new bedroom, a space untainted by James's betrayal. We ordered a new bed, replaced the linens, and created a peaceful retreat where I could rest, without constant reminders of what I had lost. "This isn't just about getting through the crisis," Melissa said as we arranged family photos and meaningful objects in my new space. "It's about creating a foundation for your new life for you and your daughter." As Monday approached, I meditated on my options. I could confront James immediately upon his return, but that risked a private conversation where he might attempt to manipulate me as he had done throughout our marriage. I could wait until he volunteered information about his business trip, catching him in lies, and gradually revealing my knowledge, but that approach would drag out the pain. Instead, I chose a direct public approach that would leave no room for manipulation or denial. I would meet him at the private terminal when his flight landed, with witnesses present and evidence at hand. The confrontation would be civilized, but unequivocal, establishing the terms of our separation on my timeline, not his. The night before James's return, I slept surprisingly well. Perhaps it was exhaustion from days of emotional turmoil, or perhaps it was the clarity that comes with decisive action. Whatever the cause, I woke on Monday morning with a sense of purpose that had been absent for months. Today, I told my unborn daughter as I dressed in a simple but elegant maternity dress that emphasized, rather than concealed, my pregnancy, "We take back our future." Monday afternoon arrived with clear skies, perfect flying weather for James's return journey with Amanda. From my laptop, I monitored their morning activities through the hotel's security system access, provided discreetly by the property's management after Martin explained the situation. The legal team had moved quickly, securing evidence of James's infidelity with proper authorizations to avoid any privacy violations that could complicate divorce proceedings. The footage showed James and Amanda enjoying a leisurely breakfast on their suite's balcony overlooking Miami Beach. They packed unhurriedly, exchanging occasional kisses and looking thoroughly relaxed. They had extended their supposed business trip by 2 days, giving them a full weekend of vacation at my expense, both financial and emotional. At 1 o'clock, I received confirmation from Thomas that they had boarded the return flight at Miami International. "We're proceeding as planned, Mrs. Adams. Estimated arrival at Logan is 4:30. With Melissa driving to keep my stress levels manageable, we arrived at Eagle Stream's private terminal at Logan Airport at 4 o'clock. Daniel met us at the staff entrance, escorting us through private corridors to avoid the main reception area where we might be noticed prematurely. "The VIP lounge is prepared as you requested," he informed me. "Security personnel are positioned discreetly. We've also arranged for your car to be waiting at the private exit when you're ready to leave." The VIP lounge offered a perfect vantage point with one-way glass overlooking the main terminal area where arriving passengers entered from the tarmac. I could see James and Amanda when they arrived, but they wouldn't see me until I chose to reveal my presence. Melissa squeezed my hand as we settled into the comfortable seating. "Are you absolutely sure you want to do this here? We could still confront him at home instead." I shook my head, my decision firm. This needs to happen on my terms, in a place where he can't control the narrative. Plus, I need him to understand exactly what he's been doing, using my company, my inheritance, to facilitate his affair. At 4:15, Thomas radioed that they were beginning their final approach. I accessed the cabin camera feed one last time on my tablet, watching as James and Amanda prepared for landing. They were holding hands, looking relaxed and happy, unaware that their carefully constructed deception was about to collapse. "When we land, let's grab dinner at that seafood place you mentioned," James was saying. "I can tell Sophie I had a late client meeting and won't be home until 9 or so." Amanda nodded, leaning in for a kiss. "Perfect. That gives us a few more hours together before returning to reality." Their casual planning of yet more deception strengthened my resolve. This wasn't a one-time mistake or a brief lapse in judgment. This was a calculated, ongoing betrayal with no signs of remorse or ending. At 4:35, the plane taxied to our private terminal. Through the window I watched as the stairs were positioned and the door opened. James emerged first, looking confident and refreshed in casual designer wear that contrasted sharply with the business attire he'd departed in. Amanda followed her hand comfortably in his until they reached the bottom of the stairs, where they separated slightly, maintaining a more professional distance for the benefit of any observers. The charade might have worked if I hadn't already seen the truth. Their body language still betrayed their intimacy, the way they leaned toward each other, the lingering touches, as they collected their luggage from the ground crew. I watched them enter the terminal, where they would normally pass through a quick security check before exiting to their waiting transportation. This was the moment I had planned for. I turned to Daniel and nodded. "Now, please." Daniel spoke quietly into his radio. Seconds later, Thomas's voice came over the terminal's speaker system. "Mr. James Wilson, please proceed to the VIP lounge for an important message regarding your Eagle Stream account." I saw James freeze momentarily, confusion crossing his face. He had no Eagle Stream account beyond the single booking he'd made. Amanda looked equally puzzled. After a brief hesitation, they followed the attendant who had appeared to escort them. When they entered the lounge, their expressions shifted from confusion to shock as they saw me waiting 7 months pregnant and unmistakably calm with Melissa at my side, and several Eagle Stream executives positioned respectfully in the background. "Sophie," James managed, his voice cracking slightly. "What are you doing here? How did you know about my flight?" "Hello, James," I replied, my voice steadier than I had expected. "Amanda, welcome back. I trust you enjoyed your trip on my airline." James's face went pale. "Your airline? What are you talking about?" "Eagle Stream Airlines. The company my grandfather built and left to me 2 years ago. The one you've been using to conduct your affair, charging the flights to our joint credit card." Amanda's eyes widened as understanding dawned. She took a small step away from James, creating distance between herself and what was clearly becoming a disastrous situation. James attempted to recover, shifting instantly to denial. "This is a misunderstanding, Sophie. Amanda and I were meeting clients in Miami. This is a business trip." I smiled faintly. "A business trip that included champagne toasts to your future together, discussions about your child she's carrying, plans for divorcing me after my baby is born, that kind of business trip." His face contorted with shock. "How could you possibly know?" "The planes have security cameras, James. Standard safety feature. As the owner, I have access to all flight records and footage. I've watched your entire journey both directions." James looked desperately around the room, seeking an exit or ally and finding neither. "You spied on me. That's invasion of privacy. You can't legally do that." Daniel stepped forward slightly. "Actually, Mr. Wilson, all passengers are informed about security monitoring and the terms and conditions you accepted when booking. Mrs. Adams acted completely within her legal rights as both the owner and as someone whose credit card was used for the reservation." Amanda, who had remained silent until now, finally spoke. "James, you told me you were separated. You said your wife knew you were seeing other people while finalizing divorce details." This new revelation didn't surprise me, but hearing it confirmed still stung. James had been lying to everyone, constructing whatever narrative served his purposes in the moment. "We are not separated, Amanda," I said quietly. "We were trying for a baby for months. I'm 7 months pregnant with his child, and until recently I believed we had a solid marriage." Amanda's face crumpled. "Oh my God. I never would have. I didn't know." She turned to James, fury replacing shock. "You complete lying bastard. You told me she couldn't have children and that's why you were leaving." James looked trapped, sweat beading on his forehead as his elaborate deceptions collided. "Sophie, please. We should discuss this privately. This is between us." "No, James. You gave up the right to privacy when you conducted your affair on my company property, using our joint funds while I carried your child. But you're right about one thing: this conversation is essentially over. I nodded to Melissa, who handed me a folder containing documents Martin had prepared. These papers outline the immediate steps being taken. I've frozen our joint accounts after transferring my personal funds to a separate account. The mortgage fraud has been reported to the relevant authorities, though I've requested they delay any action pending our divorce proceedings, which will begin immediately. James's face drained of color at the mention of mortgage fraud. Sophie, that was just a temporary financial arrangement. I was going to tell you. Like you were going to tell me about Amanda, or your baby with her, or your plans to divorce me and claim my inheritance. My voice remained calm, though my heart raced. The locks at home have been changed. Your personal items have been packed and moved to a storage unit. The access code has been texted to your phone. You can't just throw me out of my own house, James protested. Your house? I raised an eyebrow. The house is in my name, James. Another detail you apparently forgot. You're welcome to contest that in court along with everything else. Amanda had backed further away, clutching her bag tightly. I need to leave. Now. She looked at me directly. I truly didn't know. I'm sorry. I nodded slightly, acknowledging her apology without accepting it. She wasn't blameless, but James was the one who had made vows to me. As for co-parenting arrangements, I continued, turning back to James. My attorney will be in touch. I expect you'll want to be involved in your child's life despite your obvious capacity for deception. We'll establish appropriate boundaries. James seemed to deflate before my eyes. The confident man who had boarded the plane in Miami replaced by someone cornered and exposed. Sophie, please. We can work this out. I made a terrible mistake. No, James. A mistake is forgetting an anniversary or saying something hurtful in anger. What you did was make thousands of calculated decisions day after day to betray me, to use me, to lie to me. That's not a mistake. That's a revelation of character. I stood, one hand supporting my pregnant belly. I won't wish you ill, because that kind of bitterness would only harm me and my child. But I won't wish you well either. I simply wish you gone from my life, except for the limited contact necessary for our child's well-being. With that, I turned to leave Melissa supporting my arm. James called after me, his voice holding a desperation I'd never heard before. What about Amanda? Our baby. Are you just going to leave us stranded here? I paused at the door, turning slightly. I'm not a monster, James. Unlike you, I don't abandon people who depend on me. There's a car waiting outside to take you wherever you need to go. The driver has been instructed to accept any destination within the greater Boston area. As Melissa guided me through the private exit to our waiting car, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. The confrontation that had loomed so dauntingly had passed, and I had remained true to myself throughout. I hadn't screamed or threatened or collapsed in tears. I had stood my ground with dignity, protecting myself and my child with clear boundaries and decisive action. In the car heading home to a house that now truly felt like mine again, Melissa squeezed my hand. I am so incredibly proud of you, Sophie. That took unbelievable courage. For the first time in weeks, I smiled genuinely. Not courage, Mel. Necessity. Sometimes the only way forward is through, even when through is terrifying. As we drove through the Boston streets toward Brookline, my daughter kicked vigorously inside me as if applauding my newfound strength. I know, little one, I whispered, patting my belly gently. We're going to be just fine. The days immediately following the confrontation passed in a blur of practical matters and emotional processing. James made several attempts to contact me, alternating between angry accusations about being ambushed and pleading apologies, claiming temporary insanity. I directed all communication through Martin, maintaining the boundaries I had established at the airport. With James's belongings removed, I reclaimed our home as my own space. The first priority was transforming the room we had designated as a nursery, which had remained largely untouched during my pregnancy, as James continually postponed working on it. I don't want anything dark or heavy in here, I told Melissa as we browsed furniture online. Light, airy, peaceful, that's what Lily and I need now. Designing the nursery became therapeutic, a concrete way of embracing our new reality as a family of two instead of three. I selected a color scheme of soft greens and yellows, gender neutral, but bright and hopeful. My parents, now returned from Europe, insisted on purchasing the furniture, a beautiful white crib, and changing table set that would convert as Lily grew. "This is what grandparents are for," my mother said firmly when I protested the expense. "Let us do this for you both." Their support extended beyond material help. My father, typically reserved with his emotions, became a steady presence, handling home repairs. James had neglected and accompanying me to doctor's appointments when needed. My mother organized a small team of their longtime household staff to help prepare meals and keep the house in order as my mobility decreased in the final trimester. The legal proceedings moved forward efficiently under Martin's guidance. The evidence of James's financial fraud, combined with the documented infidelity and his attempts to claim part of my inheritance, created a clear case for a swift divorce with terms heavily in my favor. The prenuptial agreement we had signed further protected my assets, though James's attorney made some token attempts to challenge its validity. "He's grasping at straws," Martin assured me during one of our weekly meetings in my home office. "The judge has already indicated that the prenup will stand. James will receive nothing beyond what he brought into the marriage and his personal possessions." Despite the strong legal position, I insisted on fairness regarding Lily's future. "I won't use our child as a weapon," I told Martin firmly. "James will have visitation rights provided he demonstrates responsibility and consistency." Martin nodded approvingly. "That approach will serve you well with the court. It also leaves the door open for reasonable co-parenting once emotions have settled." While the personal aspects of my life underwent dramatic reconstruction, I also found myself increasingly drawn to the operations of Airlines. What had begun as a distant inheritance managed primarily by others became a welcome focus for my professional energy during my maternity leave from the tech company. Daniel and the management team welcomed my growing involvement, particularly my insights on incorporating new technologies to enhance the customer experience and operational efficiency. During weekly virtual meetings, I began proposing changes that would position Eaglestream at the cutting edge of the boutique luxury aviation market. "Your grandfather would be impressed," Daniel told me after I presented a comprehensive digital transformation plan. "He always believed in evolution, but you're showing us a revolution that keeps our core values intact." This increasing engagement with the family business brought unexpected healing. In the hours spent reviewing operations and planning improvements, I connected with my grandfather's legacy in a more meaningful way than ever before. His gift wasn't just the airline itself, but the opportunity it provided a purpose beyond my immediate personal crisis. As my due date approached, I completed preparations for Lily's arrival with a calm determination that surprised even me. The nursery was ready, a birth plan established with my doctor, and a support system organized that included Melissa, my parents, and a postpartum doula recommended by my obstetrician. James remained a complicated factor in these preparations. After his initial flurry of messages, he had gone relatively quiet, communicating only through his attorney regarding the divorce proceedings. I learned through mutual acquaintances that his relationship with Amanda had deteriorated rapidly after the confrontation, though they remained nominally connected because of her pregnancy. 2 weeks before my due date, James requested a meeting through Martin. After careful consideration, I agreed to see him at a neutral location, a private room at Martin's law office with both attorneys present. 7.5 months had passed since I had discovered his betrayal, and the emotional rawness had subsided enough that I felt capable of facing him without being destabilized. James looked markedly different when he arrived, thinner, and with a weariness that aging him considerably. Gone was the polished confidence that had once attracted me, replaced by a man who seemed perpetually braced for the next blow. "Thank you for meeting with me, Sophie," he began formally. "I know you have no reason to give me any consideration after what I've done." I nodded, waiting for him to continue rather than making the encounter any easier for him. I wanted to tell you in person that I won't be contesting anything further in the divorce. My lawyer has instructions to agree to all your terms." He paused, swallowing visibly, and I wanted to ask about being present for the birth. The request surprised me. "You want to be in the delivery room. Not necessarily in the room itself if that makes you uncomfortable, but at the hospital. Available if you or if our daughter needs anything." I studied him, trying to discern his true motivation. Was this genuine concern for our child, or another manipulation to improve his position in the divorce, or with public perception, why James? "You've shown remarkably little interest in this pregnancy over the past months. What's changed?" He looked down at his hands. "Amanda lost our baby. Miscarriage at 16 weeks. This news landed unexpectedly. Despite everything, I felt a momentary pang of sympathy for both of them. Pregnancy loss was a pain I wouldn't wish on anyone." "I'm sorry to hear that," I said quietly. "It must have been difficult for you both." James nodded. "It put things in perspective. Made me realize what I was throwing away, what really matters. I'm not asking for reconciliation, Sophie. I know that's impossible after what I've done, but I don't want to miss my daughter's birth or her life." After considering his request, I set clear terms. "You can be at the hospital in the waiting area. Melissa will update you as appropriate. You won't be in the delivery room. That space is for people who bring me comfort and support, and that's no longer you." Relief washed over his face. "Thank you. That's more than I deserve." "It's not about what you deserve, James. It's about what's right for our daughter." As it happened, James's presence at the birth became a moot point. Lily Catherine Adams, as I chose to name her, using my maiden name rather than Wilson, arrived 3 weeks early following a rapid labor that began during a routine morning checkup. By the time anyone thought to notify James, Lily had already made her dramatic entrance into the world, healthy and vocal, despite her early arrival. My first moments with my daughter were nothing short of transformative. Looking into her tiny face with features that somehow managed to be both brand new and hauntingly familiar, I felt a love so overwhelming it eclipsed everything else, including the pain of betrayal that had dominated my life for months. "Hello, Lily," I whispered, cradling her against my chest. "We've been waiting for you." James arrived at the hospital 2 hours later, having been notified by his attorney who had been contacted by Martin. I allowed him a brief visit, watching carefully as he held his daughter for the first time, awkward and clearly terrified of her tiny form. "She's perfect," he said, voice breaking. "She looks like you." "Let's hope she got the best of both of us," I replied, surprising myself with the generosity of the statement. Lily deserved a chance at a relationship with her father, flawed as he was, provided he could be consistent and supportive. The weeks following Lily's birth were exhausting, but filled with a joy that helped heal the wounds of the previous year. My parents proved to be doting grandparents, though respectful of my desire to establish my own parenting approach. Melissa became Lily's honorary aunt, bringing thoughtful gifts and offering welcome breaks when the sleepless nights became overwhelming. James gradually established a visiting routine, initially supervised, but eventually more independent as he demonstrated reliability. Our interactions remained strictly focused on Lily's needs. The emotional connection between us permanently severed, but replaced by a functional co-parenting relationship that prioritized our daughter's well-being. The divorce was finalized when Lily was 4 months old, concluded with minimal drama given James's decision to accept all terms. I retained the house, my inheritance, and primary custody of Lily, while James received a visitation schedule that could expand as he proved himself consistent. As spring arrived in Boston, bringing warm breezes and flowering trees to our Brookline neighborhood, I found myself sitting in the garden with Lily napping in her carrier beside me, reviewing quarterly reports from Eagle Stream. The airline was thriving under our new technology initiatives, with bookings increasing despite economic headwinds affecting the broader aviation industry. My maternity leave from the tech company was nearing its end, forcing a decision I had been contemplating since Lily's birth. After careful consideration, I submitted my resignation, choosing instead to accept the role of active chairman at Eaglestream, a position that would allow me to honor my grandfather's legacy while maintaining flexibility for my new life as a single mother. The management team welcomed my decision with enthusiasm, particularly Daniel, who had been hoping for more direct involvement from me since inheriting the company. Together, we developed a hybrid working arrangement that allowed me to split time between the office and home with childcare support from a wonderful nanny who became part of our extended family. As Lily approached her first birthday, James requested a meeting outside our normal visitation schedule. We met at a quiet cafe near my home, Lily happily occupied with teething biscuits in her stroller. "I've been offered a position in Chicago," James explained. "Senior VP of Marketing for a major hospitality group. It's an incredible opportunity." My heart sank, slightly concerned about the impact on Lily's relationship with her father. Despite our past, I believed in the importance of his presence in her life. "I see," I replied neutrally. "When would you be relocating?" "That's what I wanted to discuss with you. I'm considering declining the offer." This surprised me. "Why? It sounds like exactly the kind of advancement you've always wanted." James looked directly at me, more clear-eyed than I had seen him since before our separation. "It is. But Lily is here. And building my career at the expense of being in her life feels like repeating the same mistakes that cost me everything that really mattered." The simple honesty of his statement touched something in me that I thought had long since hardened. Not forgiveness exactly, but perhaps understanding. "There might be a third option," I found myself saying. "Eaglestream is opening a Chicago office as part of our expansion. We'll need marketing coordination with local luxury businesses. It wouldn't be as senior as the role you're considering, but it would allow you to relocate while maintaining a connection to Boston through regular business travel." James looked stunned. "You'd do that? Help me stay connected to Lily, even while moving forward." "I'm not doing it for you," I clarified. "I'm doing it for our daughter. She deserves to know her father, and you've shown commitment to being in her life. That matters more than our past." That conversation marked a turning point in our post-marriage relationship, a shift from merely functional co-parenting to something approaching mutual respect. James accepted the Chicago position, but also took on consulting work with Eaglestream, allowing him to visit Boston regularly and maintain a presence in Lily's life. My own life continued to evolve in unexpected ways. The active role at Eaglestream brought new challenges and opportunities, including a merger possibility with a tech-focused aviation company that complemented our luxury service model. The negotiation process introduced me to Michael, the tech company's founder, whose innovative thinking and genuine interest in both my professional insights and personal story gradually developed into something more than business. "I admire how you've handled everything," he told me during a dinner meeting that had stretched long past the discussion of merger terms. "Turning such profound betrayal into strength and new beginnings takes remarkable character." His words reflected something I had come to recognize in myself. The betrayal that had once seemed like the end of everything had actually been the catalyst for a new beginning, forcing me to reclaim parts of myself that had been submerged in marriage and discover strengths I hadn't known I possessed. On Lily's first birthday, surrounded by friends and family in the garden of the home that now truly felt like our own, I watched my daughter take her first wobbly steps, falling and getting back up with determined persistence that made me laugh with recognition. "That's it, sweetie," I encouraged her. "That's exactly how we do it. We fall, we get back up, and we keep moving forward." Later, as guests enjoyed cake and conversation, Melissa joined me on the porch swing, both of us watching Lily charm everyone around her. "Could you have imagined this scene a year ago?" she asked softly. "When you were sitting in that hospital room watching that horrible flight video?" I shook my head. "Not in a million years. I thought my life was ending. Instead, it was just beginning." "Any regrets about how you handled things with James?" I considered the question carefully. No. I could have lost myself in bitterness or revenge, but that would have only extended his power over me. By focusing on what I needed to protect myself and Lily by setting clear boundaries without cruelty, I freed both of us to build something new. As the evening light softened around us, casting long shadows across the lawn where my daughter played with her grandparents, I reflected on the strange journey of the past 2 years. From betrayal to rebirth, from devastation to determination, each painful step had led to this moment of profound peace and possibility. The hardest moments of our lives rarely announce themselves as opportunities for growth. They arrive disguised as endings, as failures, as losses too great to bear. Yet within each breakdown lies the potential for breakthrough if we can find the courage to face truth squarely and the wisdom to choose freedom over vengeance. My story began with a husband's betrayal on a private jet and a pregnant wife watching in real time. But that was never the most important part of the narrative. The real story was what happened next, how that moment of devastating clarity became the foundation for a life rebuilt on authenticity, strength, and the enduring power of choosing our own path forward. Have you ever experienced a betrayal that eventually led to something positive in your life? I'd love to hear your story in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please hit that subscribe button and share with someone who might need to hear that even our darkest moments can lead to unexpected light. Thank you for listening. And remember, sometimes what feels like an ending is really just the first page of a much better story.